The train shrieked like a caged beast, straining to break free, and Evelyn Hart felt her heartbeat thudding against her ribs. Redstone Bluff waited outside, dusty, loud, and full of strangers who would soon decide her future. She pressed her palm against the smeared window glass, watching men swarm the platform, boots scuffed, eyes sharp. They looked like buyers at a livestock auction, not men searching for wives. Evelyn's throat tightened. She had come all the way from Charleston to escape disgrace, a scandal that had stolen her job, her standing, and nearly her name. This so-called marriage lottery promised a clean slate. But as she saw the jeering men shouting and waving their tickets, she wondered if she'd just stepped from one fire straight into another. The whistle gave one last wail. The conductor swung the door open. The other women gripped their bags close, silence heavy between them. Fear does that to people. When Evelyn stepped out, the desert heat slapped her like a punishment. The air reeked of sweat and horses. The mayor stood on a crate, brass badge gleaming like a prize. He shouted proudly, "Welcome to Redstone Bluff! These fine ladies have come to bring grace to our growing town, and to keep it fair, Providence will choose who marries who." That word, lottery, sliced through Evelyn's chest. Hats flew, men cheered, sweat rolled down her spine. One by one names were drawn. Women sobbed quietly as strangers claimed them like prizes. Evelyn watched helplessly as hope was bartered and traded like currency. Then the mayor reached in again. "Miss Evelyn Hart!" Her knees trembled. She moved because she had no choice. The train groaned behind her, metal screaming as if to warn her to turn back. But there was nowhere to go. "Number 6, the mayor called, Mr. Calder Reeves." The crowd parted. A tall man stepped forward, coat dusty, boots cracked, his eyes the color of storm clouds. His hands were large, steady, marked by work and silence. He tipped his hat politely. "Miss Hart?" She stared at his hand before finally taking it. Calloused, strong, not cruel, just lonely. "Welcome to Redstone Bluff, Mrs. Reeves." The cheer that followed felt like a funeral bell. Calder led her to a wagon without a word, his voice flat when he finally spoke. "We ride now. Get your things." No hesitation, no softness. Hours passed in silence. The prairies stretched endless and cruel. Finally he said, "The ranch is small, but it's sound. You'll handle the house, cook, mend, tend the chickens. We'll manage." Evelyn stared out at the empty horizon. "Do I have a choice?" He didn't look at her. "No one does out here. You survive or you don't." When the cabin appeared, her heart sank. Small, gray, one window, the kind of place that forgot laughter ever existed. Calder unloaded her trunk, pointed to the well, the barn, the dying garden. He said simply, "Supper's at sunset." And then he walked away. Her voice cracked a little. "Why do you sleep on the floor? I know what kind of wives men buy." He looked toward the hills. "I didn't send for a servant, and I sure didn't send for someone to fear me. I won't touch you unless you want it." His honesty startled her. "So what do you expect? Work, fairness, that's all." Days passed, storms rolled in. He lost a calf. The roof leaked. She found him shivering with fever one night and sat by his side, cooling his skin with damp cloths. By morning, his eyes softened for the first time. He murmured, "You didn't have to do that." She said, "Yes, I did." Something fragile shifted between them, enough to scare her and make her hope. That night the wind roared through the valley. Coyotes cried. In the dim firelight she lay awake, listening to Calder breathe. Two lonely souls, not quite strangers anymore. When she turned, he was watching her quietly, eyes gentler than before. Something was coming, something that might save them or break them. Evelyn rose before dawn the next day. He was slower to move, still weak. He looked at her as he pulled on his boots. "Thank you," he said softly before stepping outside. That one word stayed with her all morning. The days grew easier. He began pointing things out: fences, tracks, weather signs. "Cattle wander easy if the wire breaks," he said one evening. "You'll hear me curse if it happens again." She laughed, really laughed, and he froze, surprised, before the corner of his mouth twitched upward, almost a smile. The distance between them shrank inch by inch. Yet every night he still slept on the floor. Once, in the quiet, she whispered, "Calder?" He answered from the dark, "Yeah." "Do you regret sending for a wife?" He hesitated. "No." "Do you regret coming?" She said, "I don't know, not anymore." Fair enough. Spring came. She planted new seeds, cleaned the cabin, made bread that made him close his eyes like he'd forgotten what comfort was. They talked more. Sometimes they even joked. Silence turned peaceful. One afternoon she was collecting eggs when Calder galloped in, dust swirling behind him. "Calder!" she gasped. He dismounted fast, breath ragged. "You're all right," he said, relief raw in his tone. "I saw tracks, mountain lion near the pens." He hadn't realized he was still holding her hand. Neither had she. "Come inside," she whispered. They sat by the fire as dusk settled. He finally released her hand, only to wrap both around his mug. "I wasn't gonna let that lion near you," he said, voice low. Her chest tightened. Not fear this time, something warmer. Later, while she washed dishes, she watched him fix a broken chair. His hands strong, careful. His face tired but kind. She turned. "You said you sent for a wife, not a servant." He nodded slowly. "What does a wife mean to you?" He took a breath. "Someone who stays by choice. Someone who looks at me and doesn't feel trapped." A voice trembled. "I don't feel trapped." He turned towards her, eyes searching. "Evelyn," he said quietly, "I ain't good with words, but I'll never hurt you, not even by accident." She stepped closer. "Then don't be afraid to reach for me." He hesitated, then brushed her cheek with his thumb. Her hand rose to meet his, warmth spreading through both. Just when the air felt too still, a gunshot tore through the dusk. Calder moved instantly, placing himself in front of her. "Stay here," he ordered, grabbing his rifle. "Calder!" But he was already running toward the sound. She stood frozen, watching him disappear across the prairie. Two men on horseback had ridden in, strangers, armed, mean. "You've got a nice herd, easy pickings." "This is my land," Calder said firmly. "You'd best leave now." "You and what army?" Evelyn's breath caught. The men drew their guns. Calder's eyes flicked toward her. "Stay back." But one thief noticed her. "Well, look at that, the missus." "Leave her out of this," Calder growled. "Maybe we take her instead," the man sneered. That was it. Calder fired first. Gunfire thundered. He shoved Evelyn aside, the air thick with smoke and shouting. One thief screamed, clutching his arm. The other cursed and fled, promising revenge. When it was over, Evelyn ran to him. "Are you hurt?" "No," he breathed, eyes scanning the horizon. "They might come back." Without thinking, she grabbed his hand. "I was so scared." He squeezed her hand. "Not while I'm breathing." That night he repaired the fence while she made stew. When he came in, tired and quiet, she looked at him for a long moment. "I don't want to sleep alone tonight," she said softly. He froze. "Evelyn." "I'm not afraid of you," she whispered. He stepped closer, voice low. "I just needed you to choose this." "And I do," she said. "I choose you." He exhaled, a sound like surrender and peace. They lay together in silence, two broken hearts that finally stopped running. He found her hand in the dark and held it. Morning light touched the cabin. Calder whispered, "No more flaws. We're in this together." She smiled, real, bright, alive. Months passed. The scars faded. The land grew kind again. She filled the cabin with laughter. He built a porch where they watched sunsets. Every night he said the same words, "You're my wife, not by luck, but by love." The prairie wasn't empty anymore. It was home. The lonely rancher wasn't lonely now, and the woman who came for safety found something far rarer, a reason to stay. If this story touched your heart even a little, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It truly helps bring you more tales from the old frontier. As the camera fades, their silhouettes sit under a blood-orange sky. Two souls who learned that sometimes love doesn't arrive in thunder, it arrives in quiet footsteps across the dust. Thank you for listening, folks. Stay with us for more Wild West stories. And remember, your support keeps these campfire tales alive. So hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already.